Every now and then, a version of a beloved character comes along that gets too close to the essence of what makes them work. In 1994, Spider-Man the Animated Series became one of those adaptations.
I wonder how strong I am now. I like your style.
The shadows and paranoia of Steve Ditko's original Spider-Man comics, the dramatic humanity of John Romita, and the explosive energy Todd McFarlane brought into the 90s. The greatest ideas, stories, and emotions in Spider-Man history colliding into one definitive animated world. The 1994 animated series was different. It structured itself like long-form comic book arcs unfolding across episodes with continuity, consequences, and recurring storylines that felt closer to Marvel Comics than most animated shows of its time. Aside from a handful of exceptions like X-Men the Animated Series and Batman, serialized storytelling was still the exception rather than the rule. Yet even among those shows, Spider-Man approached continuity in a way that felt uniquely ambitious.
I had to.
Producer, story editor, and head writer John Semper Jr. stood at the center of Spider-Man the Animated Series as one of its key creative architects. Semper had already built experience in television writing and animation development, including work on series such as Alvin and the Chipmunks and other cartoon animated productions. Instead of treating each episode as an isolated unit, he began shaping the series around continuity and long-running narrative arcs. Storylines carried forward and decisions had consequences. Characters changed across time rather than resetting back to their starting point every week. There was real character development. It felt mature, but it was still a cartoon with restrictions. Equally important, supervising director and producer Bob Richardson brought a very different kind of experience to the production. Richardson had worked in animation for years before Spider-Man, including earlier Marvel-related projects such as Spider-Woman in 1979 and Dungeons & Dragons. His experience allowed the series to feel more cinematic than many earlier syndicated cartoons, where staging and direction were often more static and episodic in nature. Together, Semper and Richardson operated on two different layers of the same system. Semper constructed the serialized narrative spine, building arcs and continuity across episodes. Richardson translated that structure into visual storytelling, ensuring that each episode carried momentum, atmosphere, and dramatic weight. Through that combination, Spider-Man the Animated Series developed a form that aligned closely with comic book storytelling logic, where narrative threads extend over time and emotional consequences accumulate rather than reset.
Could try to destroy Eddie Brock.
Much like the comics of Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, the series treats Peter Parker as the center of the story. The world building and mythology is clearly Ditko-inspired, but the attitude and look are clearly taken from John Romita's take. Combined with the explosive visual energy of Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man running through the entire series, it created something that still feels untouchable. McFarlane inspired how Spider-Man moves, Romita inspired who Peter Parker is, and Ditko inspired the world they both live in. Instead of focusing on how Peter Parker becomes Spider-Man, the series begins with an already established hero trying to hold his life together. Peter Parker is already attending Empire State University, working for the Daily Bugle and trying to keep an increasingly complicated life from falling apart.
Peter Parker. What did you say? Ooh, you're quite the bully when you want to be, aren't you, Parker? Problem is, Eddie Brock isn't the same guy he once was. Everything's okay now.
You were downright brave back there. It was quite a surprise.
Some date, huh?
That's one way of putting it.
You want to give it another try?
Well, Parker, you have to understand something. I don't usually allow myself to be taken hostage on a first date.
This approach illustrates perfectly how the series is about Spider-Man, not about how he becomes him, not an origin story. And that's where the series truly understands what makes Spider-Man special in the first place. Not the powers, not the villains, but the constant tension between Peter Parker and the life he chose the moment he put on the mask.
Reality is like a river that splits off into many parallel tributaries. These Spider-Men are from parallel realities.
Mary Jane, will you marry me? Mary Jane!
Every thread felt connected to another. The deeper Peter was pulled into one problem, the more another one was already waiting for him. And every new storyline felt like another strand being added to an ever-growing web.
For a second, I thought I was going out of my mind. What do you know? Put out flypaper, catch a spider.
Spider-Man stories are about Peter Parker trying to survive being Spider-Man.
The series spends an unusual amount of time setting up its future storylines. Eddie Brock is introduced from the very beginning as Peter Parker's rival at the Daily Bugle, competing for the same stories, losing opportunities because of Spider-Man's actions and slowly building resentment that eventually turns him into Venom.
From now on, we're forcing to you, Spider-Man. He's lying, isn't he?
Harry Osborn is Peter's best friend long before the Green Goblin enters the picture, which makes Norman Osborn's transformation and Harry's eventual involvement feel like the natural escalation of an already existing relationship.
As the new Green Goblin? It all makes sense now.
Wilson Fisk is present throughout much of the series as a businessman, philanthropist, and unseen power broker whose influence reaches into nearly every major conflict in New York. Peter even saves Fisk's life from the Hobgoblin early in the series, a moment Fisk later remembers when he offers to pay for Peter and Mary Jane's wedding. By the time Spider-Man discovers just how deeply Fisk is connected to the city's criminal underworld, the audience has already spent years watching his influence spread through the story. The same approach extends to a larger Marvel universe. Daredevil enters through Fisk's world, Blade grows out of the Morbius storyline, the X-Men emerge through the show's growing interest in genetics and mutation, and eventually the story expands all the way to the Secret Wars.
How about we go digging for an explanation?
What an interesting plan.
For your only chance to save this planet and return home is to lead the fight against evil and win.
Come back! Beyond her! They'll destroy it! You mustn't... Webb, you can't let him do this!
It's not for me to choose in this matter.
Look.
And then the narrative pulls everything back into its emotional center. Peter Parker's connection to Mary Jane Watson, as her disappearance becomes the final driving force of the series, transforming what began as interconnected superhero storytelling into a personal search across realities, ending not with resolution, but with the beginning of a journey into the multiverse, where Peter finally sets out to find her again alongside Madame Web.
We are going to find the real Mary Jane Watson.
What?
As of recently, the story of the 1994 animated series continues in Marvel's Spider-Man 94 comic series, picking up directly after the original cliffhanger and following Peter Parker's ongoing search across the multiverse for Mary Jane Watson. A sixth season was originally planned, but the series was unexpectedly cancelled before it could be produced, and the creative team instead used the final arc to craft an ending that still feels structurally complete, turning the unresolved search for Mary Jane into a satisfying, emotionally resonant ending.
The show understood that behind every crossover, every secret identity, and every battle to save the city, there was always Peter Parker trying to hold his life together. It understood that Spider-Man is not just action. It is responsibility, it is sacrifice, it is friendship and love. It is getting back up when every part of your life is pulling you in a different direction. The series took decades of comics, the mythology of Steve Ditko, the humanity of John Romita, the energy of Todd McFarlane, turned them into something that felt effortless. A world where every character mattered. A world where every storyline led somewhere. And a world that kept growing without ever losing sight of Peter Parker.
I, for one, accept your leadership, Spider-Man.
30 years later, it still feels like the version every other adaptation is chasing. This is Spider-Man. This is Peter Parker. This is Spider-Man the Animated Series. Untouchable.
You have to! For yourself! And for Harry!
We call ourselves Venom.
I'll chase